Welcome. In Cover Story this week, we walk you through the politics between two most powerful Congress bungalows in Lutyens, Delhi. This is 24 Akbar Road, the Congress Party's headquarters. In fact, interestingly, during Indira Gandhi's time, the Congress Working Committee meetings used to take place here at Akbar Road, and this continued during Narasimha Rao and Kesari's tenure also. At that time, the meetings used to take place on the floor in what is now known as the media conference room. There was arrangements on the floor with pillows and cushions, and tea and samosas and snacks were served over there. Of course, in Sonia's time, it's a corporate era. The meetings take place at the drawing room in 10 Janpath, which is more, like a conference table. It's like a boardroom kind of a situation. As soon as you walk into Akbar Road, the first office that really hits you is that of Janardhan Dwivedi, the all-powerful Congress General Secretary. In fact, along with Party Treasurer Motilal Vora, both he and Dwivedi control the politics at the headquarters over here. Even the recent reshuffle, which saw the all-important media department being taken away from Janardhan Dwivedi, hasn't really robbed him of his importance. In fact, the only one who's ever posed the challenge to Dwivedi in recent times is Congress General Secretary Digvijay Singh. Interestingly, his office is on the right of Janardhan Dwivedi's, but Digvijay Singh has never really been on Dwivedi's right. So around 5 years ago, when Rahul Gandhi began to take more of an active interest in politics, when he became Party General Secretary, he saw another entry into Akbar Road, which is Digvijay Singh, who also became a General Secretary. Digvijay Singh is known to be very close to Rahul. He is one of his trusted General Secretaries, and then actually began the power tussle between Janardhan Dwivedi and Digvijay Singh as far as the headquarter politics were concerned. So while Janardhan Dwivedi still remains as the voice of Sonia Gandhi, for instance, when she was ill, it is Janardhan Dwivedi who comes out and gives a press release. No other General Secretary is trusted with this information. But Digvijay Singh, as far as Rahul Gandhi is concerned, he appears to be the final word. This, of course, is Rahul Gandhi's office at 24 Akbar Road, the party headquarters. But as you can see from the lock here, he barely ever comes here. In fact, he prefers to operate from his own residence at Tughlaq Road, or else the new centre of power, which is at 15 Gurdwara Rakabganj Road. But as you can see from the lock on the door, he very rarely comes here. In fact, this should be the corridor of power at Akbar Road, for we have Sonia Gandhi's room right next door. But again, even her room has a lock on the door. The duo rarely come here, preferring to operate from their respective houses. In fact, we have over here a gentleman who had come to meet Rahul Gandhi.
I am very sorry, I came so many times to Rahul Gandhi's residence, but I could not get a glimpse of him, because it is very bad, because he is a man, a public man.
Here we have a disappointed Congress worker. In fact, there are many outside, and when they don't meet Rahul, they instead go with his man Friday, Digvijay Singh. Now we come to another bungalow in Lutyens, Delhi. This is 15 Gurdwara Rakabganj Road, tucked away from the media glare. But ever since, say, 2009, this has been functioning as the Congress Party's war room. The famous Lok Sabha Coordination Committee, which has Rahul as the head, takes place over here and not at Akbar Road. For as we saw, Rahul's door on that office is locked. Otherwise, the room over here, it's a 7-bedroom bungalow. This is housed usually by professionals and non-party people who sit here and plan the party's campaign. But of late, ever since, say, January this year, when Rahul Gandhi took over as Vice President, we see a lot of important party meetings also taking place over here. For instance, just last week, he met party MPs from Madhya Pradesh at this office and not at Akbar Road. The reason for this, of course, is that media is not allowed inside here. We're not allowed to go inside the gates. We can only stand over here and speculate as to what goes on inside. This suits Rahul Gandhi's way of functioning, of course. And so, of course, where Rahul goes, the rest of the party follows. So we have Janardhan Dwivedi, Motilal Vora, even an Ahmed Patel coming here often late in the evenings for very high-profile meetings, high-level meetings to chalk out the party strategy. As the controversy overturning Hyderabad into a union territory heightens up, we catch up with the MP from Hyderabad, Asaduddin Owaisi. Asaduddin Owaisi is the second-term MP from Hyderabad. He is also the president of the AIMIM, which walked out of the UPA last year. His younger brother Akbaruddin is a state MLA who often flirts with the headlines for all the wrong reasons. A graduate of London's Lincoln's Inn, Asaduddin is clearly the more reasonable face of the Owaisi clan. Hello and welcome to Cover Story, Mr. Owaisi. First, let's talk about the contentious issue of the moment, Hyderabad. I mean, there is some talk of Hyderabad becoming a union territory, but you don't seem to favor that. Why?
The reason I don't favor that is, number one, that it does not have geographical contiguity as if you compare Chandigarh. Chandigarh has a geographical contiguity to Punjab and Haryana, whereas the nearest border from Hyderabad of Andhra or Rayalaseema is 190 kilometers. Secondly, Telangana cannot survive without Hyderabad. And thirdly, Telangana has been the hinterland of Hyderabad. And fourthly, you cannot separate geography. Geographically, it is part of the 10 districts of Telangana. And the last point is that when Maharashtra and Gujarat was created, the same demand had arisen at that time that the Bombay at that time should be made a union territory.
Right.
So then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru in his wisdom did not agree that no, this will be part of Maharashtra. The second example I can give you is when old Mysore state was being converted into Karnataka state. At that time also Bangalore was controlled by Tamilians. But they said no, this will again be part of Karnataka.
But you don't want Hyderabad to be also part of Telangana. So what do you want exactly?
No. Number one, we were opposed to the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh. Now the bifurcation looks a reality. When we have been saying consistently that if bifurcation happens, then Hyderabad should not be made a union territory.
It should be part of Telangana.
Of course, Telangana has been the hinterland of Hyderabad. That is why we are saying that Hyderabad has to be part of Telangana. And you please understand that for our daily drinking water needs, we require water from Telangana. And apart from all the reasons which I have just mentioned, I feel this will be a travesty of justice if Hyderabad is made union territory. And I don't think so. No one in Hyderabad or in Telangana will accept Hyderabad union territory, and this will become another contentious issue, and there will be a lot of bloodshed and unnecessary law and order problem. So even the CWC resolution of Congress Party is very clear. They don't talk about Hyderabad union territory. They say this will be a joint capital for 10 years. That is fine. We can work on that. To make it a union territory and to deny the Hyderabadis and other people, we don't agree to that.
But why are you against Telangana also? Because 60 years ago, Hyderabad and Telangana was a separate state ruled by the Nizams. Was it so bad then?
No, 60 years ago, the then Hyderabad state, after it became part of Indian Union territory, it went right up to Aurangabad, and it went right up to present day Gulbarga and Humnabad. But when the states were formed on linguistic basis, so the Marathi speaking area went into the old Bombay state and into the old Mysore state. So
you are saying it's not the same?
It's not the same. So the state hasn't. The reason we were opposing is that already we were bifurcated in 1950s, 53. Now again a bifurcation has happened. It's going to happen. So anyway, now we have accepted that okay, this is the reality. But you are again talking about making Hyderabad a UT. I mean, how long? I mean, this is like, are you dividing someone's personal property? You cannot change geography. You cannot change all these things. It's going to be a difficult thing.
But also you met Sonia Gandhi recently, I think in August. What was that meeting about? Was it about Hyderabad or are you planning to come back?
I really don't want to comment on what what I spoke to her and what I told, but yes, I did meet her. That is the truth. Yes.
So that meeting is on the record. So
yeah.
But are you planning to come back to the Congress?
Come back to Congress in what way? I mean,
come back to the UPA, sorry, not the Congress.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what future holds for me. But as of now, I'm not part of UPA. But we have definitely supported the UPA in this landmark food security bill and the land acquisition and rehabilitation bill. I don't know what future holds for me. What kind of result will come in 2014 or the next Lok Sabha election. But one thing is for sure, definitely we'll ensure that the NDA or the BJP-led government does not come back in center, and we'll try our utmost best in a democracy have all the right to stop communal combination coming into power. That as far we'll try and do, and then we'll see what happens.
See, talking to you now, you come across as a very reasonable man. We know that, you have a history, you studied at Lincoln's Inn, you have a very good education. But why back at the state level, why are the Owaisi brothers accused of rabble-rousing, of rabid speeches? I mean, you said very reasonably, I'll prevent communal parties from coming into power, so I will oppose the BJP. But in Hyderabad, your brother says things like, 25 crore Hindus, Muslims, let them lose on 100 crore Hindus and see what happens. These kind of speeches don't suit Indian politics, do they?
As far as that particular speech is concerned, that is 2 criminal cases have been booked against him. Right. Now we'll have to wait for the judiciary to give its judgment on it.
But do you condemn such speeches?
No. I am not in a position to condemn or condone it because the matter is sub judice. Right. Now whether it will be decided on the basis of the Evidence Act, and then the court will form an opinion. So I will leave it to the wisdom of the courts who know law more than me. Now, as far as this perception about us being rabble-rousers, you see, I would request you that please come to Hyderabad and see the work which we are doing and see the amount of appreciation that is there. Because, this image and this media hype which is there, but what is there on the ground, you have to accept and see the good work which we are doing.
I'll tell you the media hype, and it comes from statements like the what I earlier said, then statements like saying I will behead Taslima Nasreen.
No.
These are the statements that...
Taslima Nasreen.
What did he say about her?
Taslima Nasreen, we opposed her visit, we protested.
But he said I'll behead her.
We protested against her and we'll again protest against her visit. But, see, that's why I'm saying that one has to come to Hyderabad and see, and why is it that we are being continuously elected by the people? You cannot win elections on rabble-rousing. Maybe one election. Or 2, that's the maximum. You have to do something constructive, and that is what we are doing. Some
would say you're going the Modi way. He also uses rabble-rousing to win elections initially, and so do you.
For God's sake,
for God's
sake, don't compare me to a person who slept while 4,000 Muslims were butchered in Gujarat. And that is a completely wrong example to make, and I don't want to be compared to a modern day Hitler.
What are the Owaisi brothers really like? If the media perception and this perception of these, then why do you make such speeches first of all?
Speeches, we have to make speeches, we are politicians, but whether we make it within the 4 parameters of the law, that is the important thing. Now,
do you think you make it in the 4 parameters of the law?
We have made all the speeches which are there on the record. How many cases? I am facing some cases because I'm a politician.
That it is not in the 4 parameters of the law.
Let me finish my sentence. I am facing some criminal cases because I'm a politician. I protested so many times. So we have, those cases have been booked. But as far as giving a speech and those criminal cases, I don't think so. Apart from that last case, there are no cases of that sort against us. But people can have, and we will definitely say what we have to say, because you see, I don't represent deaf and dumb people. I have to speak. I have to represent what is their feelings. And if I can put it forward in a better way than other people, why do you blame me for that? And I know, unfortunately, in our Indian political system, you don't have people who have good oratorial skills. You see, any political leader, he has to rely on script. He has to read and we give speech, and it is up to the people. And if it is within the law, fine. If not, then the law will take its own course. I am not above law. I am not above law.
But you're saying there are so many cases against you, so many cases against our brother. So is this, does this help you get some political mileage?
No, cases, like let me give you one example. We protested against the Danish cartoons with the police permission. And cases were booked against us for no reason. Non-bailable section. So I went to the police and said, okay, here I'm giving myself up. Now the recent case and 7-year-old case was booked against me. I don't even know that case. I got a summons from the magistrate that you have to come. I went there, not even knowing that the case is booked against me. So how do you blame me for that? So this kind of victimization, this kind of targeting and episodic booking of cases happens again. It is part and parcel of political democracy, unfortunately. But don't blame us. Wait for the court to decide. And if the court in the judgment exonerate me, then I am innocent. But till that time, I am still innocent.
Okay, but you've been a lawyer, so I can see you still
I am a non-practicing lawyer.
You don't practice any?
No, I have not. So, yeah.
You got yourself as a very good client. You're defending your own case.
I cannot defend my case, but definitely I'm telling you that as far as these criminal cases are concerned, the police is completely controlled by the political executive. It is not independent. It is not independent at all.
But the political executive was an ally of yours until a little while ago. A year ago.
Despite that, cases were booked against us. Despite that, we still went to prison. And please understand that even with my brother's case, those speeches, those alleged speeches were made on December of the 18th and 22nd. And cases were booked against him after a month. And then you book a case of waging war against India. Does that warrant it? Please, I know whether he has made a right or wrong speech, court will decide. But waging war against India, what are the Supreme Court judgments which are very clear? So this kind of pressure tactics and to ensure that we are controlled in this way, this has never succeeded in the past. It will not succeed in the future also.
But do you see, objectively, not taking your case into instance, but do you see political rhetoric is falling in the country? Take for example, how do you react to Modi's comments, saying that if a puppy comes under a car?
So,
do you see that as waging war against Muslims?
No, Modi's speeches are very consistent. Please remember that during 2002 elections, when media people like you asked him, why isn't he providing relief to those people who are living in relief camp, he said, "Inke do aur inke 25 ko bhi denge hum." He is always making those speeches. He has made speeches that har action ka reaction hota hai. We remember him talking about Ahmed Mia Patel. What is the message he sent? Why does he has to use burqa of secularism? Why, you know that burqa is used by Muslim women as part of the religious belief. So Modi is consistent in his hate speeches. So that is for sure, and he will continue to do that. He will continue to do that.
But you're saying your speeches, the Owaisi brothers' speeches, are nothing to be compared with Modi's speeches. They're a different league. They're not as bad as his.
Yeah, why do you want to compare me and bring me?
But this is the rabble-rousing politics which I'm objecting against. Either, it doesn't matter if it's against Hindus or against Muslims.
No, not at all. You see, Modi, by giving those speeches, has an agenda to divide the country on communal lines and to polarize the communities to ensure that he becomes the Prime Minister of India. And that is the only way. See, there is a consistent behavior. He started first with good governance. That did not work. So he had to say kutte ka bacha. Then he had to see what, okay, now he said burqa. Now Parikrama Yatra. After Parikrama Yatra in October it would be Panchkos Yatra. Then in November it will be Vijay Divas. In between Bakrid. Then 6 December. So this is a consistent behavior of Sangh Parivar, and the showboy seems to be, the head boy seems to be Mr. Modi.
Your brother had said that, if Modi, he had challenged Modi to come and hold a rally in Hyderabad. Modi did, and by all accounts...
And what was it? And what was it? And how was it? How was it? Was it good?
But it was not a flop. He came there and said, yes, we can, and he had a crowd.
See, yes, we can, no, we can't, and all those things he can say whatever he wants. But the rally was utter flop. They were saying that 5 rupees and we'll get 5 lakh people. In that stadium, which I have played, I have lived in my childhood, I have gone over there, it cannot hold more than 35,000 people maximum. And a 35,000 mobilization is nothing great. 1 week after that, we have held a meeting. And there was a crowd of 25,000 without any mobilization. The real question would be that whether his meeting will lead to electoral success of BJP in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. That I will tell you, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He had come over there, he had made a speech, and we are telling you it was a flop show. And again we are going to tell you the result would be 0 for BJP, inshallah, in Telangana or in Andhra Pradesh. So, you see, media hype around a personality will never ensure you electoral victory. End of the day, yes, people do watch you and me, they appreciate what I say or they condemn me for what I say on TV. But will that really change their opinion? Maybe. But you cannot say with definite that, okay, if all the news channels are showing live Modi speeches, now I feel the day will come when Modi will drink a glass of water, that also will show live on TV.
Coming back to your politics in Andhra, did you break up with the Congress more because you don't get along with the state leader like Kiran Reddy, or was it something larger? Why did this breakup happen?
You see, our focus is mainly in Andhra Pradesh, and we contest elections and we have won from there. Now, if the government of the day takes steps which does not strengthen secularism, but which are helping communal forces, so definitely we'll have to reconsider. And if a government cannot ensure security to the people, whether they are minority others, then definitely we were right in withdrawing our support and not being part of the Congress party in Andhra Pradesh. So various things have happened, and now people have also accepted that we did take a right decision at the right time.
If they change the CM in the state, would you like to go back?
No, where is the question of changing him now or bringing him back? Anyway, that is the prerogative of the Congress party. But when they are now going to divide the state, so whether they are going to bifurcate the state or change the chief minister, I don't know what comes first. But I hope that after taking a decision, they will go ahead with it. Otherwise, if under the garb of Hyderabad UT demand, if they scuttle the process, believe me, I am reminded of the Urdu sher, na khuda hi mila na visal sanam hua. Because they are definitely losing a lot of ground, or lost ground in Rayalaseema and Andhra. They will be wiped out in Telangana. So it will be in fitness of things if they at least make some inroads in one area, in one region, and try to gain as many seats. Because this decision is being made keeping in mind the forthcoming Lok Sabha elections.
So they're trying to cut their losses. Andhra to haal gaya, but
you know, if you stop the process, if Congress party does not go to the next assembly election with 2 chief ministers, they had it. They will be wiped out completely beyond recognition in both the regions. So, having taken a risk, I hope that they will go ahead. If not, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me.
But do you get a sense that Congress is not being serious about Telangana? What is the sense that you're getting? You think, because they have very little time. Elections are less than a year away.
Absolutely right. There's very little time, and also this is a very contentious issue. It's not going to be easy. And the third and important point is that this rumor now of UT state of Hyderabad, this completely, if there's a truth in it, this completely contradicts the Congress stand which they have taken in their biggest decision-making body of CWC. So I don't know what is this rumor, whether it is true or not. We don't find any union ministers or leaders from Congress saying, no, this is not true. And then you talk about UT, what about police force? Why do you have to have a police force? If it is part of Telangana or that state, let the police force control it.
Okay, last few questions. One is about, you went and met Jagan Mohan Reddy in prison recently, I'm told. That is incorrect.
No, I did meet him during the presidential election.
To get him to support Pranab Mukherjee.
Exactly, and a lot of hue and cry was made by everyone. If I went and met him, it didn't help. I mean, what was the help to me? It helped the
So why are you trying to help the Congress? That's my question.
I was part of UP at that time. I didn't want Jagan Mohan Reddy to go and support NDA. If I oppose Congress party, that does not mean that I'll support BJP. That does not mean that I will go and support XYZ of RSS. I have all the right to oppose Congress party, and I will oppose them. I'll oppose BJP, but there is another alternative also. It's not like you are stuck between the two rocks. So, but coming back to your question, yes, I went and met him. I requested him, and he was very kind enough to take my suggestion and opinion. And he said yes, completely, despite what has happened to me, what has happened to him. See, for last 15 months he's in prison, and I hope that justice will be done to him.
Do you think his being in prison is justified, or you see it as large politics of vendetta that the Congress is accused of playing with very often?
I cannot answer that question despite really wanting to answer that question, because I don't want to be called under contempt of court, But definitely I feel that justice has to be done to him, and I feel that if Jagan is my political opponent, he should be out on the ground. He should be out on the ground making mistakes. I should know what he is doing. Being inside prison, it is helping him. He is getting more sympathy. He does not have to take any decision. He does not have to spend money. He
becomes a martyr.
Whatever it is, that image is created. and people fall for it. So political wisdom would tell me my opponent should be in front of me. I should be seeing his each and every move. But I don't know. People have a different idea. This is my opinion of him.
Well, I think the Congress can do a lot to learn from you.
No, I cannot. No, but Congress is a very old party and they have great leaders. And I'm sure that...
Do you think they play as an ally? Do you see the Congress as a big brother? Because a lot of allies feel that, you know, that...
So I cannot say...
But did you feel bullied by them in any way? Did you get a voice?
No, I never. Because in fact, even when I was at UP, I had criticized the government in my parliament speeches. I don't think so. I don't know. You see, it depends on you. If you have this personal aspiration of becoming a minister or progressing in the so-called ladder of ruling party, then of course then you don't raise your voices. But if you are independent and you don't have those kind of political ambitions, then of course you can say what is right and correct if a mistake is being done. It all depends on political parties and their perception of what they want.
Last question, have you met Rahul Gandhi? Because now he is the new face of Congress tomorrow. Have you met him? What is your equation with him?
No, I have not met him. But I do wish him whenever I see him in the parliament. I have not met him.
What do you think? Do you think he has it in him to pull the Congress?
I don't know. Unless, see, one thing is for sure that Congress party will have to show a face now for the forthcoming Lok Sabha elections. So that the secular vote does not get divided. That is all I can say. It is a prerogative of a party.
Is Manmohan a good enough face?
No, again it's a prerogative of that party. I cannot comment, and then they have to decide on it.
We see a very cautious Owaisi, but thank you so much for talking to us.
I cannot be a rebel rouser on this sticky questions.
Thank you so much for talking to NewsX.
Thank you.
Well, that was Owaisi, and some would say at his most reasonable best. Well, that is all for this week. Thank you for watching Cover Story, and see you again same time next week.